What if the chaos in your family isn't random, but a pattern that's been repeating for generations? Cycles of illness, sudden financial collapse, broken relationships, and unexplainable misfortune don't always come from poor decisions or coincidence. In many ancient philosophies and spiritual systems, these repeating patterns are seen as signs of a deeper spiritual disturbance. Some call it a curse. Others recognize it as residual negative energy passed down the bloodline. Regardless of the label, the damage it causes is real, and it may already be shaping your life without your awareness. But once you understand what to look for, you can begin to break the cycle. That's what this video is here to help you do. We'll explore 5 powerful signs that your family might be carrying a hidden burden, and more importantly, what you can begin doing today to stop it from continuing into the next generation. This isn't about superstition, it's about awareness. These patterns leave clues, and when you finally recognize them, you reclaim your power. The tools to protect and heal your family exist, but only if you know where to start. Don't skip ahead. Every minute of this video is designed to help you uncover the truth behind these repeating life struggles and give you a strategy for ending them for good. If you're ready to understand the spiritual weight your family has been carrying and finally step out from under it, watch closely. One insight could change the future of your entire bloodline. Sign number 1. One of the most telling signs that your family may be under a spiritual curse or carrying some kind of generational burden is the presence of repeating patterns of misfortune that strike with uncanny timing across multiple generations. These patterns often don't appear random. They follow rhythms. Financial ruin might consistently strike family members around a certain age. Health problems might emerge in similar ways, targeting the same part of the body in your father, your aunt, and now you. Even emotional breakdowns or relationship collapses can occur right on schedule, as if part of an inherited script. If you start to notice that family members seem to stumble at the same life stages, whether that's a sudden career loss in their mid-40s, chronic illness beginning in their early 50s, or repeated divorces after a set number of years, it's time to look deeper. These are not simply personal struggles. When they line up across generations, they can be warning signs that something deeper, unseen, and unresolved is moving through your bloodline. But here's what matters most. The moment you start seeing these patterns is the moment the cycle begins to weaken. Becoming aware is not just an observation, it's a breakthrough. Because spiritual patterns thrive in silence and denial. Once brought into the light, they can be understood, confronted, and in many cases, broken entirely. And that's what this video is here to help you do. We're not just naming the signs, we're showing you how to interrupt them and set a new course. So as we explore the rest of the 5 signs, your family may be cursed. Remember, everything starts with recognition. This is your first step to freedom from what may have silently shaped your family's fate for generations. Sign number 2. Now let's explore the second sign, and for many people this one strikes the deepest. Have you ever been in the middle of a conversation with your child and suddenly realized the words leaving your mouth were the exact same ones your parents once said to you? It's a haunting moment, as if you've momentarily stepped out of your own life and into someone else's. This sense of déjà vu in your personal relationships isn't just strange, it may be evidence of something that runs far deeper than learned behavior. The second potential sign that your family could be under a spiritual curse is the presence of emotionally destructive relationship patterns that mirror themselves across multiple generations. These aren't surface-level similarities. These are striking repetitions that follow the same emotional arcs, create the same wounds, and leave behind the same kind of damage, regardless of the time, place, or people involved. I once spoke with a woman who came to a painful realization. She had become the third woman in her family line, 3 generations in a row, to be left by her husband when her child turned 5. She had never thought much of it until she saw the timeline in front of her. That level of specificity can't be brushed off as coincidence. And when you begin to see how often the same events, betrayals, and breakdowns play out, down to the timing, it becomes clear that something unseen may be influencing the emotional dynamics within the family system. What sets these recurring patterns apart from normal relationship struggles is their disturbing accuracy. It's not just that the relationships are difficult, it's that they seem to unravel in the exact same ways at similar life stages and with almost identical consequences. The partner who withdraws emotionally. The parent who repeats cycles of neglect. The relationship that begins with hope but collapses at the exact same turning point. These are clues. While modern psychology might explain this as generational trauma or behavioral modeling passed down subconsciously, many spiritual traditions suggest that something more energetic or karmic may be involved. In Jewish mysticism, these are described as spiritual echoes, imprints from the past that linger until they're consciously addressed. In indigenous cultures, they are known as inherited wounds that require ritual and intentional healing to be released. Regardless of the tradition, the message is clear. These patterns carry weight, and they won't stop repeating until someone becomes aware enough to interrupt them. These emotional cycles tend to surface most powerfully during life's major transitions: marriage, childbirth, death times, when generational energy is most active and visible. If you want to know whether this might apply to your own family, begin by asking yourself, did your parents split at the same stage in life that their parents did? Have you repeatedly been drawn to partners who treat you the same way your parent was treated? Are there betrayals that seem to happen in every generation? Infidelity, abandonment, emotional abuse, following a recognizable rhythm. When you start to map these experiences, you may feel a wave of conflicting emotions. There's often a sense of discomfort, even grief, in realizing how much your story resembles those who came before you. But there's also relief, because now for the first time, you can understand that the pain you've been carrying wasn't created by you alone, and that means it can be healed. Speak with your elders. Don't just ask what happened. Ask how it felt. What changed and when? Often what you'll uncover isn't just family history, but living proof of the same wounds repeating, waiting to be named and resolved. This knowledge isn't meant to burden you. It's meant to free you. Because once a pattern is seen clearly, you're no longer trapped by it. You gain the power to choose differently. You become the person who stops the cycle from continuing into the next generation. That's the second sign that your family may be carrying accursed relationship patterns that echo through time with unsettling precision. Sign number 3. If this message resonates with you and feels like something you've needed to hear, consider subscribing to support what we're building here. Your support allows us to keep producing powerful content that helps people understand and break through the hidden forces shaping their lives. Every subscriber strengthens this growing movement of awareness and healing. And now, let's continue, because what we're about to explore might answer questions that even modern medicine can't. We arrive at the third sign. Your family may be affected by a spiritual curse, and it often shows up in a way that's deeply personal and hard to ignore. This sign involves strange and persistent health issues that appear in your family not as standard genetic conditions, but as mysterious afflictions that seem to defy explanation. These are the illnesses that linger without diagnosis, the symptoms that come and go unpredictably, or the conditions that affect several family members without any clear medical cause. When no doctor can provide a satisfying answer, and treatments bring little relief, it may be time to look beyond biology and consider something deeper at play. Unlike typical hereditary illnesses with established genetic links, these health issues are more elusive. They may strike after significant emotional events, at symbolically meaningful ages, or during times when family energy is most active: births, deaths, anniversaries of loss. For example, a seemingly healthy relative may suddenly develop heart issues right after a family betrayal, repeating a timeline that mirrors an event from a previous generation. These connections are often too precise to be dismissed as chance. Various spiritual traditions around the world have recognized this phenomenon for centuries. In Chinese medicine, such patterns are sometimes seen as disruptions in ancestral energy, or blocked qi inherited through family lines. African wisdom traditions may interpret these illnesses as manifestations of unresolved generational trauma or neglected spiritual duties. Among many Native American healing systems, these symptoms are viewed as signals of disharmony that require ceremony, not just medication to resolve. The cultural vocabulary may differ, but the insight remains the same. Some illnesses arise from spiritual wounds passed down through generations. One particularly revealing sign is when multiple relatives suffer from the same rare condition, despite no medical explanation or familial genetic link. Or when mental health issues like anxiety, depression, or addiction seem to rise at the same life stage, or follow similar emotional triggers across different family members. These patterns suggest more than coincidence. They suggest a deeper energetic thread moving silently through your bloodline. Ask yourself, are there medical mysteries in your family history that never got resolved? Have you or your relatives experienced flare-ups or breakdowns during emotionally charged periods? Have symptoms ever disappeared after spiritual rituals or resurfaced after emotional stress tied to family history? These are important questions, because while conventional medicine is essential, it doesn't always address the spiritual layers of illness layers that can hold the key to why healing hasn't yet arrived. What makes these conditions signs of a potential generational curse is their resistance to standard treatment and their tendency to reappear across decades, often following hidden timelines. In some families, a legacy of heartbreak or betrayal correlates with recurring issues involving the heart or immune system. In others, the suppression of emotional truth across generations is linked with chronic throat or respiratory conditions. It's as if the body is expressing what the soul has been unable to speak. The most empowering part is this: once you begin to recognize these health patterns as having a spiritual component, you open yourself to new possibilities for healing. This doesn't mean rejecting doctors or modern treatment. It means expanding your perspective, inviting in the idea that wellness might require tending not just to the body, but also to the emotional and spiritual wounds that live beneath the surface. So that brings us to the third sign. Your family may be carrying a curse, recurring physical and mental health issues that defy logic, resist traditional treatment, and appear like clockwork across generations. Sign number 4. If you're gaining real insight from this content and feel moved to support the work we're doing, consider using the thanks feature just beneath the video. Even small gestures of support help us continue producing deeper, more meaningful explorations of topics. Like these topics that often go undiscussed but affect so many lives. Your support helps keep this work going. Now let's continue with something that may explain why some families seem permanently stuck just beneath the surface of success. The fourth sign that your family might be carrying a spiritual curse has less to do with tragedy and more to do with invisible limits walls that you keep running into no matter how hard you try. In some families, it's as if there's an unseen barrier that stops progress cold the moment things are about to take off. Not because of laziness or poor decisions, quite the opposite. These families often contain some of the hardest workers, the most passionate creators, the most determined minds. And yet every attempt at breakthrough seems to crumble at the edge of accomplishment. This sign reveals itself through a frustrating pattern effort, without reward talent, without recognition, momentum, without destination. Just when a family member is on the verge of something great, a promotion, a business breakthrough, a major life upgrade, something inexplicable intervenes. The deal falls through. The opportunity disappears. Plans derail in ways that can't be logically explained. What makes this even more painful is that it often strikes where the person's gifts are strongest, as if something is actively preventing success in the very area where the family is meant to thrive. These limitations can take different forms. Sometimes it's a dramatic last-minute failure that happens right before a long-sought victory. Other times it's a quiet, lifelong struggle to rise beyond a certain point, no matter how qualified or deserving someone is. Think about your own family for a moment. Was your grandfather a brilliant craftsman who never got the recognition he deserved? Did your mother pour herself into a dream that fell apart just when it was coming to life? Do you or your siblings find yourselves facing eerily similar blocks in the same areas of talent or ambition? These aren't just stories of bad timing. When they repeat across generations, and especially in the same domains like music business or leadership, they begin to look less like misfortune and more like a spiritual interference passed down through the family line. In different spiritual systems, this phenomenon is explained through different lenses. In Hindu philosophy, it might be seen as the echo of unresolved karmic debts, requiring intentional spiritual correction. In West African traditions, it could be tied to unfulfilled ancestral pacts, agreements, or promises that must be acknowledged before the way forward can clear. In Christian thought, such patterns may be understood as spiritual blockages or resistance that require prayer deliverance, and sometimes even confession to break. One of the most revealing aspects of this kind of generational blockage is how specifically it mirrors the failures of the past. For instance, if your great-grandfather's life fell apart because of betrayal in business, you may notice that future generations experience betrayal in the same domain over and over again. These echoes are not random. They're markers of where the curse is anchored. If you want to discover whether this applies to your own life, try to visualize your family's history as a journey along a path. Where do things always seem to fall apart? At what point in the journey do your family members tend to stall out? Are there dreams that seem cursed, always out of reach, no matter who tries to achieve them? Over time, these patterns often lead to deep discouragement. Family members may stop reaching for certain goals, assuming consciously or not that success is simply not meant for them. But here's what changes everything. Once you see these barriers, not as personal failures, but as inherited energetic patterns, you reclaim your ability to do something about them. What was once a ceiling becomes a threshold. And with clarity, intention, and often spiritual work, that threshold can be crossed. So this brings us to sign number 4, among the 5 major signs of a family curse: persistent and illogical blocks to success especially in areas of great passion or talent that repeat through generations despite great effort. When these patterns are acknowledged, they no longer hold the same power, and the cycle can begin to break. Sign number 5. Now we come to the fifth and final sign, and for many, it's the most personal. It touches something deep and difficult to describe, a feeling you may have carried for years, but never fully understood. Have you ever entered a room, a house, or even just sat beside a certain person and felt an invisible weight pressed down on you? Not because of what was happening physically or emotionally, but because of a thick, heavy presence in the atmosphere. Something that didn't make sense, but felt undeniably real. This leads us to the fifth sign, that your family may be affected by a spiritual curse, a profound sense of spiritual disconnection, and the presence of negative energy that clings to the family environment. This isn't about superstition, it's about a subtle but persistent sense that something is off. When families are under spiritual weight, it often shows up not through dramatic events, but through an ambient heaviness that is always there, even when life seems normal on the surface. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, does your family home feel heavy, even when everyone is calm? Do family gatherings leave you drained, as if you've just stepped out of an emotional storm that no one else seems to acknowledge? Is there a constant undercurrent of tension, sadness, or unease that lingers in the background, impossible to explain, but impossible to ignore? That's not just emotional baggage. It may be spiritual residue, energy passed down through unresolved pain trauma, or harmful patterns. In some families, this spiritual disconnection takes the form of individuals who, no matter how good their lives appear, externally struggle to feel any real sense of peace, gratitude, or connection to something higher. They may say things like, "It feels like something is always following me," or "I don't feel like myself in that house." Others report unsettling experiences, the sensation of being watched, unexplained dread, or a persistent feeling that they are not alone, even in an empty room. These aren't simply emotional states. They're environmental energies that attach to families' homes and to objects and affect generations. What makes these experiences different from normal psychological ups and downs is the way they linger and the way they're tied to specific spaces, people, or family history. It's not a passing mood. It's more like an atmosphere that follows you, one that resists joy, clarity, or spiritual connection. It can take the form of nightmares, compulsive negative thoughts that don't feel like your own, or strange energy around certain times of year, particularly anniversaries of traumatic events or losses. Certain places in your home might feel inexplicably cold, oppressive, or avoided by everyone without knowing why. Some family heirlooms, old mirrors, photographs, jewelry may seem to carry an odd energy, drawing attention for no logical reason. Pets may avoid certain rooms, or electronic devices might frequently malfunction only in one space. These are subtle but consistent signs of energetic interference. Throughout the world, spiritual traditions offer different lenses to explain this phenomenon. In Catholic thought, this might be seen as spiritual oppression, requiring prayers of protection and deliverance. In Buddhist teachings, it may be understood as karmic residue, clinging to a space or lineage, needing purification and mindfulness to be resolved. Many indigenous traditions recognize such imbalances as signs of intruding spiritual forces or disharmony with nature, and ancestors best addressed through cleansing rituals, ceremony, and reconnection with the land and spirit. Despite how easily modern minds may dismiss these experiences as just imagination, spiritually attuned individuals throughout history have agreed energy leaves marks. And when these marks go unaddressed, they can silently shape the emotional and spiritual atmosphere of a family for generations. The hopeful truth is this spiritual disconnection and negative energy can be cleansed. Every spiritual path, whether ancient or modern, offers tools to help realign and restore energetic harmony. From smudging practices using sacred herbs to guided prayers, meditations, energy clearings, and ancestral healing ceremonies, you are not powerless in the face of this weight. What once felt mysterious or terrifying can be named, confronted, and released. As you reflect on this final sign, ask yourself, have you sensed a spiritual heaviness in your family, especially in particular places or around certain people? Have you ever felt that something was standing between you and peace, even when your life seemed fine? These sensations are more than just passing feelings. They are often the last and most intimate signal of an unseen burden in the family line. A burden that once recognized can finally be lifted. So this brings us to the fifth and final sign that your family may be carrying a spiritual curse: the presence of deep spiritual disconnection and persistent negative energy that colors the emotional atmosphere of your home and family across generations. Let's now turn to what matters most, what you can actually do to change this. If you've recognized any of the 5 signs: recurring misfortune, repeating relationship struggles, unexplained health problems, blocks to success, or a lingering sense of spiritual heaviness, it's time to take the next step, breaking the cycle. Across cultures and spiritual paths, there are time-tested ways to release these inherited burdens. In Christianity, generational curses are broken through prayer and spiritual deliverance. In Buddhism, karmic purification is achieved through ritual and mindfulness. Indigenous practices often rely on ceremony to heal ancestral pain. And even modern psychology acknowledges that new patterns must be consciously chosen and reinforced over time. The first step is awareness, which you now have. The next is intention, making the decision that this legacy stops with you. And then comes action, the daily deliberate practices that begin to shift your energy and your family's future. As these changes take root, many people report an almost immediate sense of emotional relief, followed by more clarity, stronger relationships, and unexpected breakthroughs. Within months, some even experience a full reversal of patterns they thought were permanent. It's important to remember this truth: you didn't choose these generational wounds, but you do have the power to release them. With awareness comes responsibility, not just for yourself, but for those who come after you. There's no reason to carry burdens that can now be understood and healed. No reason to pass them down when freedom is possible. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next step in this healing journey. And before you go, there's another video waiting for you that dives even deeper into this path. Watch it now. Your future self will thank you.